Hello and welcome back to Clownfish TV. It is me, Geeky Sparkles. It is only me today because Kneon is out doing something else, and we're going to be sitting here talking about the Marvels. And actually, given the context, this is probably better it's coming from just me because I have boobs, and that's going to give me a little bit more credibility here over him because I'm a woman. And they're going to try to say toxic men bad. Well, I'm a girl, so sit and spin, I guess. But before we get into it any further, please like and subscribe. If you do, I'll give you a woohoo, woohoo. Also, please go out to shopclownfish.com. We have about 10 days left on the pre-order for Shadowbinders Volume 3. We are, 19 away from hitting the goal. This one is the third volume of the book. 1 and 2 are also available in limited quantities. This will be out next summer. If you missed it, you can get it here. If you are somebody who cannot back unless it's on like Kickstarter or something, I think we're going to probably do that here down the road a little bit. So you'll still probably have a chance as well. So now back to the issue at hand. Okay, so the Marvels. I think the lowest estimate they had was like 45 million. So good news, it did 2 million better than the absolute worst case scenario. So though I'm surprised it's not running with that. It's a win, guys. It's a win. 47 million is what they think it's going to turn out to be domestically for the opening weekend, which makes it the lowest MCU opening ever. Globally, I think it's at about 110 million, which is also not good because they were banking on China. And this movie, if you recall, cost about, I think I have it here, 274.8 million to make. Now, they did get a $55 million subsidy from the UK government, so it's coming in at around 220 million. So it means it's going to have to do like 650 to 700 million just to kind of come out a little bit ahead. And you have to remember too, the marketing on this has been crazy. They keep pushing it because it's not going to do well. So they keep trying and throw more good money after bad. And they're going to have a huge budget there to overcome as well. So on Twitter, this person here had posted this comment and they tagged us in. They said that here's the breakdown for the films. First Friday, first Saturday, first Sunday, and you can see the Marvels underperformed against most of these films overall. Now here I have it kind of listed in order. Now they're saying it's the worst one because like Incredible Hulk is the next to worst one at 55.4 million in 2008. When you adjust these for inflation, it's way far away from most of these totals. The only one that would be kind of close and their total wouldn't have changed much was maybe Ant-Man and the Eternals for sure, because those are just more recent. But some of these were like 15 years ago, 12 years ago. So adjusted for inflation, they're significantly higher than the Marvels. And they'll use that as an excuse. Well, it only did a little bit under the Hulk, which was released 15 years ago. And when adjusted for inflation with an inflation calendar, it comes over 70 million. Actually, one calculator said it was closer to 80 million. I think that's a little high, but it's over 70 million for sure, adjusted for inflation. So when you put that into context, they always make sure they don't. It's really, really underperforming. And that's a problem. I mean, even Eternals, which was a complete bomb, 71.3 million. And on this graphic from Now It Is Known on Twitter, you look at The Flash, and The Flash did better. The Flash did like 55 million opening weekend. Black Adam did like 67 million opening weekend, and they were considered huge failures. But the Marvels, because they're women, we gotta, make excuses because it's women. I don't think it's. I think that there's a couple things, like I said, going on. I think that it's because that the characters, unless you watch the Disney Plus shows, you don't know who the hell they are. Disney has lost goodwill with fans because they keep oversaturating and the stuff has not been good lately. It has been declining returns on quality, on story, on, a lot of narrative, but not so much, good movie, good show. They have that going on. People were, only committed to the first, arc. After Endgame, they didn't care. They're like, well, we're out. A lot of people said they were out. And apparently they are. People are waiting until it comes to Disney Plus, so they don't have to pay for it again because they don't want to pay for it because they don't think it's worth it, but they'll watch it on Disney Plus. There are a lot of reasons this is happening. The critics didn't like it. They didn't give it great scores. Some did, some didn't. Last I checked, it was like 60-some%, like 61 or 2%, a critical score. There's a big divide, of course, in the audience score. You have the verified audience, which is, of course, much higher than the all audiences, which has led to another whole thing about, it's review bombing again. Here at Looper, they're talking about Marvel's bombed at the box office, but they mean review bombed. And they're saying because there's lots of toxic fan discourse surrounding the film, and this sort of online toxicity is on par for the course for Marvel. It's interesting how a general sentiment of hatred and distaste began to penetrate mainstream channels because everybody thought it looked terrible. Maybe it's not hatred, maybe it's not distaste, maybe it's just because it wasn't arguably that great. Maybe, what's that, Occam's razor? Maybe the simplest explanation is what it is. Just saying. They're talking about it was largely focused on how it would underperform, and it was a self-fulfilling prophecy because everybody just knew it wasn't going to, the public perception was it wasn't going to do well to begin with. It didn't help that it was pushed back like 5 different times. There was rumors of reshoots, all this other stuff. Of course people weren't too interested in it. Plus, I don't think that Captain Marvel was a very big popular character. And I'm sorry about how much Disney has tried to make Ms. Marvel a popular character. She isn't. I'm sorry. They've tried her in the comics. They've tried her in games. She isn't. And people are like, who the hell's Photon? Monica Rambeau was Captain Marvel. They could have done that. People just didn't care. They didn't know who these characters were, and they didn't really like Brie Larson the first time. She was basically, the Captain Marvel the first time was put in between the last two of, big movies that were the end of the 10-year build-up between Infinity Gauntlet and, Endgame. And because they put her in between that, people thought they had to go see it. That's why it did well. That and the fact that Disney had more money back then so they could massage things. On here, they're talking about Brie Larson doesn't want to do Carol Danvers anymore because of the toxic people, because of man babies. But Brie Larson brought it upon herself. I mean, granted, when people are like, you need to smile more, that was kind of shitty because, the other guys don't when they have the things. And I thought that was kind of okay. But her behavior around it and her attitude did not help. She was like making, they have video clip now. To be fair, the video clip was from before Captain Marvel. But I don't need some 40-some-year-old white guys telling me what to think. I'm like, look, you didn't do yourself any favors. You really didn't. And plus, they made your character so unlikable in the first movie and so miserable that people just were like, you were a side character in your own movie and you were unlikable. Now, in this one, I guess they made her more likable, but it doesn't matter because no one's going to see the film and it still isn't that good of a movie. Which then we have, we're talking about like the director talking about how, there's some bad apples, they'll give them the light of day. And, she was saying here with a comment, there are pockets where you go and you're like, I'm a super fan. I want to exist in the space of just adoration, which includes civilized critique. No, see, that's the thing. The civilized critique means that you agree with me. Because I've seen civilized critique. I've given civilized critique. And I still got called an internalized misogynist or was dismissed because it wasn't what they wanted to hear. All right. There's civilized critique, but then there's most of it is you can't give any critique. You have to just, consume and love it. Because if you bring up anything, even valid points, it's because you're negative. It's because you're a toxic person, not because maybe it wasn't as good as you thought it was. And plus you're a super fan. Yeah, it reads like a fan fiction. That's probably why. Then there are pockets of really virulent and violent and racist and sexist and homophobic. And no. Do I think that there are some people that exist in a pocket? Yes. Do I think that's the majority of people? No. But I do know that the majority of people who disagree or don't like something are automatically labeled that, even if it's not true, because they criticize it. So there is this is an oxymoron. You can't have civilized critique, but then go on about how there's a pocket of all these racist, sexist, homophobic, awful things. Then you can't have civilized critique because you right from the get-go are just labeling everyone. And if you don't like it, you're part of that pocket. Except people who don't like it are also not white. People who like it are not straight. Or people who don't like it are not male. That's bullshit. You're just using it as a shield. You're using your own identifiers as a shield to try to shield yourself from criticism. But if it sucks, it sucks. And I chose the side of light. That's the part of fandom I'm most attracted to. Like the 5% that still likes my shit. That's the good guys. No, look, maybe you could take some criticism, and some criticism is stupid, flat out. Some of it is racist, sexist, homophobic. Some of it is. I'm not going to say it isn't because that would be disingenuous. Something that, they have no problem being disingenuous. But it's not, it would be a lie to say that doesn't exist. But is it the majority? No. Unfortunately, Civilized Critique gets labeled as these things if someone doesn't like it and hear it. And they're like, well, you're just automatically this because then I feel better about rejecting you. I can reject you and say by saying you're a bad person. Even if you're not. If you're like, hey, that doesn't work. Well, that's because you hate women. No, it just doesn't work. Please do tell me how this video is about how you hate women. Okay? Because, last I checked, I am one. But okay. Then they talk about Sana Amanat. Then we have Sana Amanat here, who is basically Ms. Marvel is her own stand-in OC of herself. Everybody knows that. It's a running joke. She was the producer on the Ms. Marvel show. She also did the comics. She said this sort of toxic hate comes from a place of anger. I think it comes from a place of anger and the sense that their identities are being threatened. No, it comes from a place of, it sucks. Do better. If they can't connect with it, then that's okay. I just wish they wouldn't try to put it down. But any criticism is them putting it down. Any criticism is met with, that's because you're a bad person and you're putting it down. That's not fair. Because sometimes the criticism is valid. Sometimes it's true. Sometimes. Then the next thing is, are all the critics who hated it, are you now saying that the critics are toxic hate, that they're being threatened? Even the women, there's a lot of women who didn't like the movie. Are they personally being threatened because they can't connect with it? Are they not giving Civilized Critique because they didn't like it? Are they racist, sexist, homophobic people because they didn't like your film? No, it's just the people that you want to label because then you can dismiss them. And then they talk here too about review bombing, toxic masculinity. Here we go. Toxic masculinity and review bombing. Because don't you know, if it does bad, it's always because of review bombing. Now, critics never review bomb. But if it does bad, it's because all the haters that somehow are the vocal minority, yet the majority at the same time, are out there on Rotten Tomatoes voting it down. Does it happen? Yes, it does happen. However, not in the numbers they try to argue. Now, does it happen that a bunch of super fans and studios go out and put a bunch of positive reviews up to try to bring the score back up? Yes, it happens. They cancel each other out, okay? You can't argue that toxic fans are downvoting it while knowing at the same time that super fans are upvoting it unfairly. If they're both unfair, then it's, if one side's bad, if heads is bad, so is tails. Same coin, different sides. You can't argue for one and never mention the other. All right? If they're review bombing it, then they're also artificially inflating it. Because they are. We know this. We've seen it a bunch of times. And then, I'm tired of hearing that if you don't like something, it's because you're a toxic man. There's a lot of women who don't like it. There's a lot of people who are non-binary that don't like it. Stop saying it's only men who don't like it. A lot of female critics didn't like it. Are they actually just men? Are they internalized misogynists? Benjamin? I'm so glad Benjamin's here to tell me how to be a better woman. I'm just sick of it. I'm just sick of it. I'm tired of the excuses. It didn't do well because people were not looking forward to it. It didn't do well because Disney has oversaturated the Marvel brand. It didn't do well because people don't want to go to the movies anymore. They'll wait till Disney Plus. It didn't do well because the first movie kind of sucked and y'all white knighted for it and covered up the fact that people just went because they thought they had to. They didn't really like Captain Marvel. The books and stuff don't even do well. Ms. Marvel doesn't do well. They've had to reboot it how many times? They don't connect with these characters. They don't care about these characters. I'm sorry. Young Avengers are being set up with a bunch of characters. Most people, normies, are like, who the hell are they? I didn't watch the Disney Plus shows. Who are they? You've created your own problem and you try to blame it on toxic masculinity, which is a load of shit. Maybe some introspection and take some responsibility for your own bad choices. Instead of calling everybody else who doesn't like it some kind of hater, istophobic something, to try to offset that maybe you just done fucked up. I don't know. Anyway, please like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.